Hey guys, so the word rate, I'm going to make this really easy for you. Rate is whenever they talk about two different things. For example, they could say a person can read 100 words in 20 minutes. Then they're going to say something like, determine the rate at which person reads in words per minute. Okay, so can you see that they're talking about words and they're talking about minutes? So whenever they're talking about two different things like that, that is where we're going to start talking about rate. The next thing that you must look for is this part here. They said words per minute. Immediately, I want you to say words over minute. Okay? If they say minute per words, then you would say minutes first and then words at the bottom. Okay? But they said the words per minute. So the words goes at the top, then the per is the line, and then minute. So you're dividing them. Okay, so what we would then do is you would then say 100 words and 20 minutes. And if you divide that, you end up with 5 words per minute. So what that means is that if someone can read 100 words in 20 minutes, that's the same as they are reading 5 words per minute. Why would we need to know that? Because what if they said another person can read 60 words in 8 minutes? Who is the faster reader? Well, it's very difficult to look at that and to look at that and to try see who's faster. Okay, so it is possible, but what we can do is we can go work out this person's words per minute. So we will say 60 divided by 8. And if you say 60 divided by 8, you end up with 7.5 words per minute. Now, all of a sudden, it's very easy to see who's the faster reader. Why? Because the first person can read 5 words in 1 minute. So in 1 minute, they can read 5 words. For this person, in 1 minute, because it says per minute, they can read 7.5 words. So who's the faster reader? Well done if you realize that it's this person over here, because they can read 7.5 words in a minute, whereas the other person can only read 5 words in a minute. And so rate is, we're going to do a lot of examples in this lesson, but what I want you to understand is that rate is important when we're talking about two different things, okay? And whenever they use this words per minute, then that helps you to make sure which one goes at the top and which one goes at the bottom. Now, there's something else which is called unit cost. Let me do an example with you, and then we'll move on to our examples. So let's say we have ShopRite, okay? We know the ShopRite, and then we have the ShopSpar, and then let's say we have Checkers, okay? Now let's say at ShopRite you can buy 6 eggs for 24 Rand, okay? At Spar you can buy 18 eggs for 54 Rand. And then at Checkers, you can buy 36 eggs for 100 Rand. And I want to ask you, which shop is actually going to be the cheapest? So all that you need to do is you need to work out what is the price of one egg. So what is the price per egg? That's what you need to work out. You don't want to work out the egg per price. You want to work out the price per egg. So look at that. Price per egg. So we're going to put the price at the top. The per is the line. And then egg. Okay? So you're going to put 24 Rand divided by 6. And that'll give you 4 Rand per egg for ShopRite. Then for Spar, you're going to say 54 Rand divided by 18. And that's going to give you 3 Rand per egg. And then for Checkers, you're going to say 100 divided by 36. And that's going to give 2 Rand 78 per egg. So which shop is then going to be cheaper in this example? Well, Checkers is going to be the cheapest because you only pay R2.78 for one egg, whereas at Spar you're paying R3 for one egg, and at ShopRite you're paying R4 for one egg. Okay, now we're going to move on to the normal examples, but I just wanted you to get an idea of how useful rate and unit cost can actually be. Unit cost is just when we're talking about things like eggs and things, but it's all the same thing, actually. Okay, so here are some examples. Bob can read 1,400 words in 5 minutes. Now listen carefully. Determine the rate at which he reads in words per minute. So words is at the top, per minute. Okay, so that's going to be words at the top, minutes at the bottom. If you calculate this, you end up with 280 words per minute. So that means that Bob can read 280 words per minute, or in a minute. A person can run 400 meters in 80 seconds. Determine the rate in meters per second. So it's meters at the top, per second. You're not going to say second per meter because they said meters first, per, then second. Okay? And so we're going to then go and say 400 divided by 80, and that'll give us 5 meters per second. So that person can run 400 meters in 80 seconds, which is the same as running 5 meters in 1 second. Okay? A car can drive 300 kilometers in 2.5 hours. Determine the rate in kilometers per hour. So kilometers per hour. So kilometers is 300. The hours is 2.5. And if you calculate that, you get 120 kilometers per hour. You see? So this person can drive, or this car can drive 300 kilometers in 2.5 hours. They want to know how far can it drive in 1 hour. So we're just going to work out the kilometer per hour, and we got 120. So that means that this car can drive 120 kilometers in 1 hour. So then how far can it drive in 2 hours? Well, think about that. It can drive 120 kilometers. That's how far it can drive in 1 hour. So then in the next hour, it'll drive another 120 kilometers. So then how far has it driven altogether? Well, that means it's gone 240 kilometers. You see? And then in the next 1 hour, it can drive another 120 kilometers. But what if it only drives for half an hour? If it only drives for half an hour, well, then it will only be able to drive 60 kilometers. So in 2.5 hours, in 2.5 hours, sorry, this is 2.5. It would be able to drive 120 plus 60, which is 300. And that's exactly what they told us. So this car can drive 120 kilometers per hour. A 6-pack of eggs costs 24 Rand. Determine the price per egg. So we're going to say price per egg. Whenever they say per, that's the line, the divide sign, okay? So the price is going to be 24 Rand, so you can just say 24. The eggs is 6, and that's going to give us 4 Rand per egg. You could say 4 Rand per egg. Martin can read 1,400 words in 5 minutes, whereas Tabile can read 1,600 words in 6 minutes. Who is faster? Okay, so all that you do here is you want to know who can read the most words in 1 minute. Okay, so for Martin, we want to know how many words can he read per 1 minute. So we want to work out his words per minute. So all we do is we say 1,400 divided by 5. And so that'll be 280 words per minute. Now for Tabile, we're going to do the same. We want to work out how many words can he read in 1 minute. So we want to work out his words per minute. So that'll be 1,600 divided by 6. And that'll be 266.67 words per minute. So now it's easy to compare them. Martin can read 280 words in 1 minute. Tabila can read 266.67, so maybe 267 words per minute. So who reads more words in 1 minute? Well, Martin. And so that means Martin is the faster reader. You see, you can't compare them when you're looking at it like this. It's too difficult, right? It's not easy. But when you take both of them and you change them both to 1 minute, then it's easy to compare them. Okay. A car uses 40 liters of petrol to drive 300 kilometers. So the car drives 300 kilometers, and in that it uses 40 liters of petrol. Okay? So think about that. When it drives 300 kilometers, it's going to use a big tank full with 40 liters of petrol. That's how much petrol it will use to drive. Now, the first question says, determine the kilometers that the car can drive with 1 liter of petrol. So they want to know how many kilometers can it drive per liter. So you're just going to say kilometers per liter. So you're just going to take 300 kilometers divided by 40, and that'll be 7.5. Now you must say kilometers per liter. And that answers their first question. Now it says, determine the liters that the car uses to drive 1 kilometer. So it almost sounds like the same question, but now they want the liters per kilometer. But in the first question, they wanted the kilometers per liter. Okay, so now it's just the other way around. So now they want the liters. For question B, they want the liters per kilometer. And so you're just going to take the liters divided by the kilometers. And if you round that off, that'll be 0.13 liters per kilometer. Here's our last example. Tandor has a scooter that can drive 200 kilometers. So it can drive a distance of 200 kilometers, and it will use 10 liters of petrol. I want you to imagine that. 200 kilometers, think about how far that is, and then 10 liters. You know, like a 2-liter Coke bottle? Well, that would be 5 of those so that you can make 10 liters of petrol, okay? So as the scooter is driving, it uses up petrol. Now, they tell us that the petrol price is 22 Rand for 1 liter. Okay, so 22 Rand for 1 liter. So the first question says, how many liters would Tandor use if he drives 550? Now, there's many different ways you could do this. One of the ways is you could say, okay, if we drive 200 kilometers, that will use 10 liters. Okay, so if you then divide this by 200 and you divide this by 200, then this will give you 1 kilometer, and this will give you 0.05 liters. So what that means is that if he drives 1 kilometer, he will use 0.05 liters. It's like 50 milliliters of petrol. So then, if you want to make that a 550 kilometer, then you can multiply by 550 here, and you can multiply by what you do to the one side, you do to the other side. So that means that if he drives 550 kilometers, then he will use 27.5 liters. Okay, now that makes sense. Think about this. If you drive 200 kilometers, you are going to use 10 liters of petrol. So if you drive 400 kilometers, you are going to use 20 liters of petrol. If you drive 600 kilometers, then you would use 30 liters. So if you drive 550 kilometers, it should be in between, somewhere in between those numbers. And so 27.5 makes sense. So the answer for this one is 27.5 liters. Now this next question says, how much will it cost Tandor to drive 120 kilometers? Well, that's quite a tricky question. So the first thing you need to know is how much petrol are you going to use? So we already saw over here that if he drives 1 kilometer, then he will use 0.05 liters. So if he then multiplies this by 120, then it will be 120 kilometers, which is what we want. And then the amount of liters over here will be 6 liters. Okay, so we know that for Tandor to drive 120 kilometers, his scooter will use 6 liters of petrol. Now we also know that the petrol price is 22 Rand for 1 liter. per liter. So we have 6 liters. So we could say 6 multiply by 22. And so he's going to use, it's going to cost him 132 Rand to be able to drive 120 kilometers.